Welcome back to Face the State. I'm Ariana Bennett. Thank you for staying with us. Well, making the Truckee Meadows more flood-proof is a big project, and it has a big price tag. But right now, there isn't enough directed funding to make that happen. So I'm back with Jay Aldean from the Truckee River Flood Management Authority to talk about the wish list. Jay, thank you so much again for your time.
Oh, pleasure.
Okay, so let's dive right in. What's number one on the wish list?
Number one on the wish list, building the whole flood project would be number one on the wish list. What we are going to do, we're going to actually design what we call the Vista Narrows area. And it's probably about a $30 to $40 million start of the project. If we were to start moving on the project and finally found enough money, we would start there. And so we're going to start designing that.
Okay, so how much money do you have now?
We currently receive a 1/8 cent sales tax, which is the remainder of the public safety sales tax that occurred in 1998, I believe. And it built the Dandini facilities, the Emergency Operations Center and the Regional Training Center. And we're still paying those bonds off. But we get about $8 million a year. We pay about $1 million in salaries, so we're netting, somewhere around $7-8 million a year, and will over time. But that's not enough to build a project. Our project is roughly $400 million, and it's inclusive of Vista, actually all the way from Wadsworth, because we have to do some mitigation in the Lower Canyon, all the way through downtown Reno, and that $400 million will build about 45 projects. And it will completely seal the Truckee River to at least a 100-year storm event, or the 1997 event, which is a little bigger, but it would still convey that water as well.
So if, say, hypothetically, that project had been built prior to this past winter, would it have mitigated a lot of the damage we saw?
It would have mitigated the flooding around the Southeast Connector, over the UNR farms, in the commercial areas, because there was a lot of flooding in the commercial areas. It wouldn't have addressed the irrigation ditches along Reno, the west side of Reno. It wouldn't have addressed Lemon Valley or the other North Valley lakes that are up there. So
is there a reason why that's not included in the project?
Well, I wrote a response to a frequently asked question. Up until this point, Lemon Valley hasn't been a problem. It has been able to hold all the water that flows into it and evaporate out or sink or seep into the ground. This one was an extraordinary year. So what it did is it turned everybody's attention to the fact. So this needs committee that we will probably get into, I know you'll be asking me a question on that, has one of its charges is to deal with these other issues.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that. The legislature basically mandated the formation of a committee to talk about flood mitigation, the needs committee. So I know it's comprised of a bunch of community leaders. What are you guys discussing? Well,
we have two charges. The first charge is, because we already have an authorized plan by the federal government, by Congress, we have a commitment, I don't want to use the word commitment, but we have the authorization for is up to $180 million of federal funds to match our money. And that we have to raise our share of that $400 million in order to build that Truckee River Flood Project. But so what their first charge is to look at all the various tax revenues. There's 4 taxes they're looking at, look at a fee, and make a recommendation to go before the voters in November of 2018 as to whether or not they want to raise the remaining amount of money to build the project. Once they do that, then they turn their attention to the other drainage issues that we have, we'll call regional drainage issues. And we know that I mentioned 2 of them, the irrigation ditches, they overflow in West Reno, and that's not the ore ditch, but the lake ditch, steamboat ditch, last chance ditch, all these ditches that are on the hillside up there. There's a problem associated with that, and we probably don't have time to get into it, but we also have a problem in the North Valleys. Those lakes and the way that they were developed, people didn't know at the time that they developed. The actual methodology that they used to develop was really quite sound. It was engineeringly quite sound. The problem is we didn't plan for this extraordinary year, and that's what happened. So we have to do something, and so they're going to look at that. And so our committee is going on right now. It will last all the way through December of 2018.
Okay. And so when you say going toward voters, that's going to be a ballot measure asking to what, raise a tax?
It'll be a ballot measure to look at maybe one, maybe two, a menu of taxes to raise the revenue to be able to match the federal money and build the river project, the Truckee River Flood Project.
It's a tough ask. I think anytime you want to raise a tax anywhere, but especially here in Nevada, and especially on the tails of the sales tax increase we just saw to build schools, which took them years to pass, what kind of a battle are you envisioning?
I expect a huge battle, and frankly, I think it's a very difficult ask as well. When you look at the amount of money that we're pulling out of this community in order to be able to get infrastructure projects. But one of the things that keeps me going is the fact that if you look at communities that have learned, Denver's a good example. You take all the metropolitan Denver area. They recognize that they couldn't do it in and amongst themselves. They had to do it from a regional standpoint. And once they realized that, they were able to actually cobble together everything that they needed to build downtown improvements, transportation, transit, all these things that were big needs that they felt were important. And also I find that people, you know, I work for the government, but people don't always trust the government to do the right thing. Sometimes they don't. But they usually trust the people that will promise a project. So in other words, the Southeast Connector, they voted for that back in 05, 06, whenever it was. They voted for that. Why? Because they knew they were going to get something for their money. They worry about giving, you know, carte blanche to elected officials, but in this particular case, there's a hard project. The project is going to be on the ballot. If we ask them and they say yes, we'll build it.
Okay, we just have a couple minutes left, but I would like to talk, if you can give us even just some basic specifics of what this tax money would build.
Tax money would build flood walls and levees starting at Vista, which is right at the basically the end of the valley, all the way up through 395. It would improve 3 additional bridges in downtown Reno. It would replace the Booth Street Bridge with a pedestrian bridge, and it would increase the flood walls in the downtown area so that the downtown area doesn't flood anymore. It would prevent any kind of smaller storm event from getting to the commercial area. It would provide 100-year protection throughout the whole commercial area of Reno Sparks, plus it would keep the airport dry.
Okay. Well done. That was a good long list. How much money, so you said 400 million-ish, and would it sunset after that point?
Well, my recommendation is going to be that it does sunset. We have enough money with our current 1/8 cent sales tax to use as maintenance money to give to the communities, you know, Reno, Sparks, and Washoe County, to be able to maintain the facilities, and or if they don't sunset it, they could potentially not sunset it and use the money for the regional problems as well. So they have a lot of options, and I don't know what's going to happen.
All right, so we've got about a minute left. Voters going to be seeing this on their ballot in 2018. What's your final message to them? My final message is to remember that we're all in this together, and we need to protect our own. We need to provide for our own, and this is about the only way this is going to happen. There's not a great guy who's going to come and rescue us in 20 or 30 years. It's not going to happen. We're going to have to do it ourselves. All right, Jay, thank you so much for your time. Absolutely, pleasure. I appreciate it. Well, that is it for this episode of Face the State. But for more information on all of this or to see past episodes, you can just head to our website. That's ktvn.com. Thank you so much for being with us. We'll see you next week.